We're seeing the singleism trend on Chinese social media. Posts with the hashtag no marriage, no children from female influencers, often in their 30s or 40s on Xiaohongshu, China's Instagram, regularly gain thousands of likes.
Being a woman in China means struggling with a unique set of challenges shaped by centuries of tradition and rapid modernization. Traditionally, women in China have been expected to prioritize family responsibilities, uphold cultural norms, and maintain harmony within the household. These expectations often revolve around getting married, having children, and fulfilling caregiving roles for both children and elderly family members. Despite China's advancements, societal pressures and expectations still weigh heavily on single women in China. They often face scrutiny from family members, friends, and society at large if they deviate from the traditional path of marriage and motherhood. But why is being a single woman in China a crisis? Join us as we confront the deadly crisis of single women in China. Love's Marketplace, inside China's vibrant matchmaking corners. In China, there's a special tradition called the Chinese marriage market. It's something a lot of families do when they want their grown-up kids to get married. Imagine this. In busy places like central Beijing, there's a park called Zhongshan Park. Parents go there hoping to find the perfect match for their children. These parents really put in effort to find the right husband or wife for their sons and daughters. They set up what you can think of as special spots in the park, kind of like stalls in a market. But instead of selling things, they're trying to find partners for their kids. These spots are called matchmaking corners, and they're not just in Beijing. You can find them in many parks in big cities like Shanghai, too. At these parks, parents come with ads showing off all the good things about their children. They're basically trying to attract people who might want to marry their sons or daughters. Interestingly, most of the ads are for women looking to get married. It's a whole cultural thing that's been happening for a while now, and it's a unique part of life in China. Parents often grumble that their kids are too fussy about who they want to marry. They say their children have really high standards and are waiting for some perfect match, which is why parents end up trying to find a partner for them. This is causing fewer weddings to happen in China. Recent numbers show that fewer couples are getting married, with only 6.8 million tying the knot last year, the lowest number since they started keeping track in 1986. And with more single women in China, this trend seems to be continuing. China's Department of Civil Affairs found that the number of marriages in the last 10 years has been cut in half. It's not just one thing, but a mix of many reasons. Professor Jean Young from the National University of Singapore says it's because young people aren't just sticking to the old idea of partnership. Nope, they're all about finding love and happiness on their terms, not just fitting into traditional roles. So, while fewer people are getting married, it's not because they don't want love, they're just looking for something deeper and more personal. Back in 1949, China changed its rules to include women in its constitution. This was a big deal because it meant women were officially recognized in the country's laws. But it wasn't just about updating laws. It was about creating a new China, a vision that Mao had. However, there was a problem. There weren't enough people to make this vision a reality. So they turned to women and asked them to step up and join the workforce. These women weren't just ordinary workers. They were given a tough nickname, the Iron Ladies. These women were seen as strong, tough, and ready to build the future. Today, things have shifted. That tough nickname, Iron Ladies, has transformed into something entirely different. Now, there's a term floating around called leftover women. But it's not a compliment. It's an insult. It's used to pressure women into getting married and starting families. It's like saying, "Hey, you're not married yet. What's wrong with you?" So, from being seen as strong and capable, women are now being pushed into a box, all because society thinks they should follow a certain path. It's a whole different world from the days of the Iron Ladies. Older parents in China, who worry a lot about their daughters being single, are doing something about it. They're setting up places in parks in Beijing where people can try to find partners for their sons and daughters. These places are full of matchmakers who help families find the right person to marry. Even though there are many unmarried women, it's still hard to find someone. The matchmakers and families looking for matches all want the same things. They want the woman to be young, never married, and very attractive. These preferences come from the time when China only allowed families to have one child, China's one-child policy and its impact on population dynamics. Back in the late 1970s, China saw its population shrink because of some unusual rules they put in place. One of these rules was the famous one-child policy. Basically, it meant that families could only have one kid. Sounds simple, but it had some big effects. For one thing, it led to fewer marriages happening, which in turn led to fewer babies being born. This policy didn't just limit families to one child, it also ended up reducing the overall population of China. Dan Wang, a top economist in China, suggests that the one-child policy was a major misstep for the country. Imagine being the only kid in your entire generation, raised without siblings. It's like being the star of your own show, but without a supporting cast. These only children often grow up with a strong sense of independence because they're used to having all the attention at home. Now, Professor Zhu Hong adds another layer to this. She says being an only child can lead to some real challenges, especially when it comes to relationships. Think about it. If you're used to having everything your way, it's tough to learn how to share and compromise. And that's super important in any marriage or partnership. She points out something crucial. Understanding each other, compromising, and meeting each other's needs are like the glue that holds relationships together. But for those who grew up without siblings, learning these social skills can be a real uphill battle. It's like trying to learn a new language later in life. Not impossible, but definitely harder. So, according to Professor Zhu Hong, the problem with the one-child policy goes beyond just demographics. It's about the social skills that are missing in a generation raised without siblings. Things like putting others before yourself and finding common ground become a lot trickier when you've always been the center of attention. And that, she argues, is something we need to address if we want to build strong, healthy relationships in the future. The legacy of the one-child policy. A long time ago, China made a rule called the one-child policy, which meant families could only have one kid. But here's the thing. Lots of families really wanted a boy. So if they found out they were having a girl, sometimes they decided not to have the baby. Because of that, there are a whole bunch more men than women in China. It's like trying to find a partner in a really crowded room. There are almost 475 single men for every 100 single women. But many women still choose to stay single. It turns out more and more women are getting educated. But at the same time, they're facing some pretty tough challenges like not being able to find jobs or the economy taking a hit. And all these uncertainties are making some women think twice about settling down. It's not just about having more options. It's about the choices women are making for themselves. According to Reuters, this rise in educated women is happening alongside a rise in single ladies. Economic woes, singlehood trends, and the domino effect. The Communist Youth League did a little digging in 2021 and found out that a chunky 44% of the ladies surveyed weren't keen on tying the knot. The economy shoulders the responsibility. It appears that when finances are strained, romance often becomes less of a priority for many. Although it's clear that fewer marriages lead to a decline in childbirth rates, unraveling the complete narrative feels akin to piecing together a puzzle with crucial pieces missing. Some women in China prefer to stay single, and there are a bunch of reasons behind it. Take China, for instance. The economy there has hit a rough patch, especially in the real estate sector, which is super important for their overall money game. When that part of the economy takes a tumble, it affects everything else. And it's not just about money, it's also about jobs. Young folks in China are struggling to find work. They're out there hustling, trying to make ends meet, but the opportunities are slim, so they end up doing some pretty crazy stuff just to get by. It's like they're caught in this wild cycle, and it's not easy for anyone, especially for women who might be thinking about settling down. In big cities like Shanghai and Beijing, where there are lots of people living and working. People there are wondering why fewer babies are being born and why more women are staying single. Some folks think it's because of a rule in China that said families could only have one child. But even after they got rid of that rule in 2015, the number of babies being born kept going down. It's like the trend didn't go away. Let me give you an example. In 2012, there were 16 million babies born in China. But by 2022, that number had dropped to only 10 million. That's a big drop in just 10 years. Most young adults in China are scraping by from one paycheck to the next, barely managing to save anything for a rainy day. It's like they're stuck in a cycle of paycheck dependence where every yuan counts. With money so tight, the idea of going on dates or keeping up with the expenses of a partner seems like a distant dream. They're caught in this dilemma where they can't even afford to treat themselves, let alone someone else. There's even a term for it, the Moonlight Clan. These young adults are facing sky-high rent and soaring living costs, making it a real challenge to even think about finding the right person to share their life with. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack when you're already weighed down by financial worries. The Moonlight Clan's quest for love in China's financial maze. The Moonlight Clan, as they're called, symbolizes a generation in China grappling with financial instability. These young adults are stuck in a cycle where every paycheck is a lifeline, leaving little room for savings or leisurely pursuits. Dating is not just about finding love, it's about the practicalities of affording a relationship. With finances stretched thin, the idea of splurging on dates or even meeting the everyday expenses of a partner feels like a distant dream. These challenges are shaping a broader phenomenon in China. The Moonlight Clan is navigating through the maze of high rents and soaring living costs, making the quest for a compatible partner seem like an uphill battle. It's like trying to find a gem in a sea of financial worries. Dan Wang, a top economist, sheds light on a fascinating trend called the Moonlight Club. It's this fresh idea that captures the lifestyle of young folks who live it up every month, spending every penny they earn. Wang points out that many Moonlight Club members are swimming in debt, thanks to easy online borrowing and lending options. Professor Jean Young from the National University of Singapore dives even deeper into this phenomenon. She suggests that today's youth have pretty much abandoned the idea of saving money altogether. Instead of socking away cash for the future, they're all about enjoying the present moment to the fullest, rather than hustling for long-term goals. These days, China is seen as one of the top countries in terms of money and business. It's a big player that sells its products all over the world. While the economy is doing great, the people who live and work there are struggling to find a good balance. There's an idea going around that to become really successful, you have to work incredibly hard. Take Jack Ma, the guy who started Alibaba, have been telling young people that if they want to achieve their dreams, they need to put in a solid 12 hours of work every day, 6 days a week. It's like a secret rule called 996, where you're expected to start work at 9 in the morning and finish at 9 at night, 6 days a week. It sounds pretty intense, doesn't it? But that's just how things are in the Chinese work culture. When people are really busy with their jobs, they barely have any time left for anything else, like finding the right person to be with. So, if everyone's focused on work all the time, how are they going to find someone special to share their life with? And because of this way of life, fewer people are getting married in China. The rise of single women in China and the shift in marriage dynamics. In China, many women are choosing not to get married for various reasons, and one big reason is how they see traditional roles for men and women. They don't agree with the old idea that men should always earn more money while women stay home and take care of the children. They think that many men in China feel uncomfortable if their wives earn more money than them. There's this idea that men should be the main earners and women should only focus on looking after the kids. But nowadays, Chinese women don't agree with that idea anymore. They believe that marriage should be fair for both partners, with both of them sharing the responsibilities. It's not just about the husband earning money, it's about both partners doing their part, whether it's earning money or taking care of the children. So it's not just about choosing to stay single, it's about changing what marriage means in China today. But many guys feel uneasy when women regularly question the old-fashioned customs of their culture. This discomfort often leads them to choose not to marry. Consequently, there's been a remarkable rise in the number of single women in China. Love in the digital age and China's online dating revolution. Online dating apps have changed how young people in China look for love. In a place where many doubt if marriage is for them, these digital tools offer a bit of hope. Thanks to fancy technology, it's now easier to find a partner, with apps like Momo, Tantan, and Soul leading the way. There's a huge online world with 150 million active users, all hoping to find someone special. It's like a busy virtual town square, where every swipe or tap could lead to something great. Even with all these options, not as many people are getting married. It seems these apps are better at starting short-term relationships than long-term ones like marriage. So, while there are tons of possibilities online, finding true love is still a bit tricky. These apps aren't really bringing people together for marriage. Yep, even though everyone's into swiping on their phones, the classic ways of meeting someone special are still the go-to. It's like, sure, those apps are handy, but when it's time to settle down, people are sticking with the tried and true methods. In China, when young people are too busy to find a partner, they ask their parents for help. This has been going on for a long time. Even though there are lots of dating apps available, parents still try to set their kids up with someone they think is a good match. But sometimes, the daughters don't like the person their parents choose. And when that happens, they often disappoint their parents. It's a common situation where love and tradition clash in Chinese families. Both women and men deal with being seen as objects rather than individuals. Take men, for instance. They're expected to fit into a certain mold of what it means to be a real man. From a young age, there's this pressure on them to be successful and tough, to conform to this narrow idea of masculinity. It's like they're handed this script on how to act, and they're expected to follow it, no questions asked. But let's unpack this term, masculine. Masculinity, unveiling cultural frictions and their impacts. Masculinity in Chinese culture differs significantly from its Western counterpart. In the West, masculine ideals often prioritize virtues like sincerity, honesty, and other admirable traits. However, in China, masculinity is more closely associated with achieving material success, typically measured by wealth. While being a man in Western culture might emphasize qualities such as honesty, hard work, and reliability, in China, being considered a real man often hinges on possessing material wealth such as fancy cars and multiple properties. The possession of these items is frequently viewed as a hallmark of genuine success, impacting one's desirability as a partner. Judgments of masculinity may center on a person's character, their kindness and trustworthiness. Yet in China, people often prioritize a man's material possessions, evaluating factors like the quality of his car or property ownership. This stark contrast underscores the divergent cultural perspectives on masculinity. Professor Jean Young, who works at the National University of Singapore, says, if fewer people get married, more folks will end up alone. And when people feel alone, they can start feeling really sad, which might lead to more mental health problems. So, it's not just about people getting older, it's about how it can make people feel really bad. In China, getting married and having kids usually go hand in hand. So, if fewer people are getting married, it's a big deal, because marriage is often seen as the first step to having a family. Unlike in America, where unmarried couples having kids is normal and doesn't cause much fuss, in China, there's a strong belief that couples should marry before having children. If a woman in China has a child without being married, it's a serious issue. This is mainly because of China's household registration system, known as the Hukou system. The Hukou system's impact on unmarried mothers and their children in China. Under the Hukou system, unmarried Chinese women who have kids can't officially register them. And that's a big deal because being registered is really important for accessing healthcare and education in China. To get registered, it's necessary for both parents, male and female, to be married first. Back in 2015, the Chinese government got really worried because not enough babies were being born. So they decided to get rid of the rule that said families could only have one child. Thinking that after nearly 10 years, things would get better, right? But nope, China's still struggling with having enough babies. In 2015, on average, each woman in China was having about 1.67 babies. Sounds okay, but it's actually below what's needed to keep the population steady, which is around 2 babies per woman. Fast forward to 2022, and things got even worse. Now, there were just 1.2 babies being born per woman. By the time 2050 rolls around, almost half of China's population will be older folks who aren't working anymore. That's not great news for a big country like China that needs people to keep things running smoothly. Back in 1980, China had this rule where families could only have one child. They did that to make sure the population didn't get too big. But now, they're facing a different problem altogether: triumphs and trials in the global economy. When China decided to fully embrace the ways of the global economy, its economy took off like a rocket, making it the second biggest in the world. One big problem is that there's a big gap between rich and poor folks, and men and women aren't on equal footing either. In the past, these strong women, often called Iron Ladies, were admired for their toughness. However, in 1980, the Chinese government started aiming at them, trying to make them stay away from work. They said women focusing on their careers instead of having babies was the reason fewer babies were being born. The government pushed the idea that these women were too much like men and needed to focus more on being mothers and wives. But this plan didn't work out like they hoped. Instead of more babies being born, people got pretty mad at the Chinese government. They saw through the attempt to make them follow old-fashioned gender roles. This failure showed how complicated things are when it comes to what society expects from women and how women see themselves in modern China. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, there was a whole bunch of persuasive messaging going on, aimed at getting women to stay at home. They tried to sell this idea by saying that real womanhood meant having babies and making their husbands happy. Even today in China, this kind of messaging is everywhere you look. You can't escape it. Advertisements everywhere show these blissful brides living perfect lives, all to pressure people into marrying and having kids ASAP. They plaster billboards with images that suggest a woman can only be truly happy if she's married and has children. It's like they're shouting, "Hey ladies, your career success doesn't mean squat unless you're popping out babies." It's a pretty desperate attempt to push a very old-fashioned idea. Many people think it's not okay for a woman to focus on her career. They say a woman can't be happy unless she gets married. This idea is everywhere on Chinese social media and TV. Even with all this pressure, modern Chinese women aren't letting it stop them. They're standing up for themselves and chasing their dreams, even if their parents want them to marry soon. And you know what? More and more women are staying single and focusing on their careers. In big cities like Beijing and Shanghai, you'll find lots of unmarried women who are doing really well in their jobs. It's like a new era for women, where they're showing everyone that you don't need to be married to be happy and successful. They're changing old ideas and making things better for women everywhere. Now that's something to celebrate. In big cities in China, it's tough for people to find a good balance between their jobs and their personal lives. But here's something cool. China's offering some neat benefits to make things easier. They really want young couples to have more kids, so they're giving out bonuses, cutting taxes, and throwing in other nice stuff. China's innovative solution to boosting population growth, China, has some big plans to solve their population problem. They found out that one reason people aren't having kids is because they worry about finding affordable places to live. So they're introducing a special housing deal, especially for families with more than one child. They're basically saying, houses can be expensive, but don't let that stop you from growing your family. People aren't just discussing the problem, they're doing something about it. In bustling cities such as Shanghai and Beijing, efforts are underway to reduce the sky-high prices of homes. Moreover, They're distributing handy housing vouchers to assist individuals in purchasing homes, starting families, and establishing roots. Certainly, pricey housing remains a significant concern, but China recognizes it's not the sole obstacle preventing people from starting families. By delving deeper into this matter, we can gain a clearer understanding of the entire situation. China's approach to combating declining birth rates and the rise of singlehood among women is like a puzzle with many pieces. They're trying out various strategies, from changing policies to offering financial perks. But whether these efforts will bring about the desired results is still up in the air. It's like a suspenseful story with an uncertain ending. However, one thing's for sure. The journey to solve this intricate puzzle of economic and social factors is far from over. As China tackles the complicated issues of modern relationships and fewer babies being born, it's like working on a big puzzle with lots of pieces. From old rules about having only one child to the struggles of young people balancing work and love, each part of the puzzle shows a different challenge. But through it all, there's a determination to find solutions. Women are standing up for themselves, and the government is trying new things to encourage families to grow. It's like a story full of twists and turns, but one thing's for sure. The journey to figure it all out is still ongoing. As China continues to navigate these changes, what do you think will be the next big step in their quest to shifting attitudes towards marriage? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like and follow.